what platforms are we using? And then we also said, hey, this is what the PEB is using. You can use this as a template, but here's some recommendations. So if that's not getting to the chapter level, we need to do some more diving down to understand if there's any tools specifically that you're using that we haven't thought of, or that we could even use on the PEB side. So that's some engagement that we would definitely need to have. But for the most part, I would say you probably gain more than what you lose.
All right, another time check. We are past the halfway point, just a little bit over 19 minutes and some change. We do have another question from Hoppin on from a delegate, but we'll actually take the question from the delegate in the room first.
Hi, my name is Shirley. I'm part of the Boston Professionals chapter. What does the first 90 days look like for you in office?
Ooh, it's gonna be busy. Very busy, very, very busy. What I'll say is probably not as probably not as bad as if I didn't serve on the PEB or currently not on the PEB right now. So the thing that will help me out in my first 90 days is I'm already a part of the board, so I kind of know a lot of things that are going on right now. The first 90 days are really diving into the specifics of specifically Arthur's plan, what he's got going on. He laid out some stuff at the general session yesterday, but taking a real deep dive into, okay, specifically what are you looking to do? We'll take it zone by zone or looking at specific areas. So it's really getting a deep dive into those areas. And then my first 90 days, let's see, I'll be engaged with the membership zone a lot. So one of the things that I have been trying to implement, especially as secretary for the past couple of years, is I want to start the year off. I want to start the summer off with a campaign push to those graduating seniors saying, hey, don't you know you get your first year free? I mean, it's a no-brainer to me, but I want to get that out to them as soon as possible because, like I said, those guys will be graduating. They'll be, hopefully going to the new cities and looking for jobs. I want them to know, hey, here's a free perk for you. Here's a perk that you can take advantage of. So that's definitely within the first 90 days. And then, like I said, getting with the membership zone, which means I'll be getting with the regional chairs and really diving down and assessing, hey, what are your needs for your regions? I know that, like I said, like you guys have said on the chapter level, starting for membership, region boards are struggling too. So really it's taking a look at them and saying, okay, from what you have on your board now, what are some key areas that we need to fill? But what can we do in the meantime with the board you have? So what are those first, objectives and things you want to run? So like I said, my first things in 90 days, getting with Arthur, getting with our comm zone, whatever they be, to do something for our graduating seniors, and then getting with our membership zone and regional chairs to assess the status of our regions.
All right, we're almost done with delegate questions. Pray for me, y'all. Delegate question from our delegate from the South Carolina Midlands chapter, Tiffany Tichy. Are there any lifetime membership additional initiatives and benefits in your plan?
I would say, turn this off. I would say no, but I'm definitely open if you've got ideas. One of the things that I'm going to tell you guys is I'm one guy. I'm not covering it all, but what I do want is you guys have all the ideas. Tell me what you want to see, and let's try to implement them. That's one of the things I've always done. The platforms we use, the technology we use. I'm had specifically thought about the lifetime membership group. I hope to be one of those eventually one day. But if you got a great idea that you want to see implemented for lifetime members, I'd love to hear it. Because like I said, my plan is I want to do what the membership needs. And so if you have an idea of something you want to see for lifetime membership, let's discuss it. Let's talk about
it. Next question is actually another one from Hoppin from Chicago delegate Melanie Mosley. What is your plan to prep for our 50th anniversary? Any ramp-up plans?
Thanks for the question, Mel. I thought you were going to ask me about Fontiva or something. Okay. I have not actually thought about plans for the 50th, but I guess that will definitely be in my chair's term. No, once again, I'll kind of refer back to my last question. If you got some ideas or thoughts around what we want to do for the 50th anniversary celebration, I said, I do know the plan is to go back to Chicago for convention that year. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I don't have any specifics that I want to do. It's definitely got to be a homecoming type feel. It's definitely got to be a celebration. So whatever we got to do, I definitely want it to be grandiose. I definitely want it to feel intentional in the celebration of 50 years of the organization. But I don't have any specifics. Oh, and Mel, yeah, that's right. You are in Chicago, so you guys will be leaning on you heavily for any recommendations or ideas. So let's get together.
All right, I'm gonna take speaker's privilege here, because Sheila's asked a couple more questions, and she's had a few of her questions already addressed. And we've had some members who have patiently been waiting to ask their questions. And so I know that I have set a rule forth with respect to the order of questioning here, but I would like to have the members in the room with about 14 minutes left be able to ask their questions. So I'm going to suspend this particular rule for a particular period until such period as we get through the questions for those who are currently in line. So, Carrie, you may ask your question.
All right, good afternoon, Carrie Jordan, Central Florida professionals. What approaches to people management and advocacy will you bring to the role in your capacity as chair of the membership zone?
Yeah, people capacity and advocacy. Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I only ask people to do what they can do when they can do it. I'm definitely not one of those people that is going to put the weight of the world on any member of my organization. Like I said, we're volunteers. I'm not trying to burn anybody out with this work. There are more than enough people who are serving on the board and in chapters that we can spread this thing around. And hey, if it comes to the fact that hey, we just not have the manpower to get it done, okay, we'll move on. What can we get done with the manpower we have? I take a realistic approach at looking at boards like that. I say one of my mottos is I don't care how many programs you do, but just do them well. So I'd rather you do one or two programs really, really excellent and to a T and crisp than try to put out 50 programs and say, oh, we've done a ton of programs. But yeah, if you got two people at them and they're poorly planned and the last minute, that doesn't mean anything to me. So like I said, I'll take a realistic approach with my people management capacities. I definitely ask people, so some of you, I've asked the question, when approaching you for positions here on the board, I didn't ask you what role do you have. I said, what do you want to do? Because that's ultimately what any of us, is really here for. What do you want to do? I'm not a title person. I'm not defined by, oh, well, you said that your position is, like I said, I'm chair elected, for instance, but so that means that X, Y, and Z. I'm like, no, if I need to go, if I'm chair elect and we have technical issues, hey, I'm gonna go help the technical team. Or hey, we've got to go, put this program on, and hey, we need somebody to go run this, I'm just making some check to the bank. Fine, I'll get my car and run it to the bank, because at that point I become what I need to do, not my title. So, like I said, I take a very realistic look at that. I try to get to know people working on my boards on a personal level, understand their motivators, their drivers. Because like I said, we're all working professionals. I've got 2 kids, I've got a full-time job. I got to trek across DFW in rush hour traffic. Some stuff ain't gonna get done until I can get it done. But know that the commitment behind it is there. And that's what I want to ensure that my team has. Hey, I have things going on, but the commitment is there. So thank you.
All right, and just an interjection really quickly that Melanie said she has lots of ideas, so she will follow up.
Cool. Melanie knows how to preach.
Georgette, your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Georgette Harrison, Director of Process Improvement. So Townsend, if you become chair-elect, one of your big things is being the board manager. How will you handle conflict resolution across the PEB as we interact with each other, not just as the PEB as a board, but also the things and the challenges that impact SIG directors as we try to do our work for the society?
Yeah, I say thank you, Georgia, for that question. One thing that I've got to understand at the end of the day, we're all humans. We all have emotions, we all have feelings, we all have motivated drivers and whatnot. So at the end of the day, no matter what the conflict is, we got to respect each other on a basic human decency level. Now, once we kind of get that out of the way, everything else is pretty much cake. Not exactly, but it gets easier from there. One of the things I like to do for board management and things I do when I do, maybe an offsite or something, is I like to do personality tests. I like to start off the meetings, my very first meeting on the board, with taking personality tests. The most recent one I took, I can't really recall it, but it basically puts people in 4 categories: red, blue, yellow, white. And I had my team take that assessment test without telling them what these colors mean. I just fill out the thing and tell me your numbers. And once they told me their colors, then we went back and looked at, okay, what do each one of these mean? And when I say we looked at what each one mean, it's like, what are their factors? So like I said, I'm a red, dominant, blue, almost red, blue. Red is my dominant, blue is my secondary color. That means that I am decisive, I'm driven, I'm headstrong, I like to have the facts and go forward. My blue side also means that, hey, I like to take some time and not necessarily empathy, what am I trying to say? But I try to empathize, what is blue? Reflect, yes, I like to take time to reflect. So sometimes I may need time to think and process. So I let my board know that. I let each one of them know. And like I said, you'll find that there's similarities and differences with people. But what that also tells you is, hey, this is how to interact with people, but this is also their triggers and how not to interact with people. So one thing I tell my board is, hey, you might like information this way, but think about who you're trying to talk to. Did they receive information the same way you receive information? If yes, cool. If not, hey, think about that person and how you present this information. Tone is always the biggest thing that I find that's the biggest conflict. People may say things with some intention, but their tone comes off rough. But like I said, that's how I try to manage my board. I like understand the person and your team's personality traits, and at least at some point, subconsciously has you thinking how better to interact with people. And so that's one of my philosophies. Thank you.
All right, with about 8.5 minutes left, we have the chair-elect next in line, but per a conversation that the speaker has had with the current chair-elect, I would like to ask first if he still wishes to pose the final question. Okay. You are still on the list.
Thank you. Townsend, right? Chair-elect, chair emeritus as a conglomerate is a really big role. And in many ways, you're the chief membership officer, right? Leading the membership zone, membership chair, regional chairs, and ultimately the regions they're in. And then all the zone leads reporting to you, and being the board manager, right? The chief operating officer for the professionals. How would you describe, right, because you have access to a lot of information with all of those moving parts, what is the current thinking that you have about the transparency that exists within this professionals, and how would you drive transparency from the top?
Yeah, great question there. Yeah, you're right. This position does sit in the middle of a lot of intersecting parts. One of the things that I'll say is on say most things I do, I try to overshare information. So what I mean by that is not necessarily fill an email with a ton of information. Sometimes that may be true, but what I like to do is say, hey, this is going to for example, this is a program-specific event. Hey, I'm definitely going to hit my program's chair up and say, hey, this is something here. But I'm also thinking in my head, maybe my chair or my membership chair, there's something in the piece of this that they need to be aware of, that they need to also be follow up on. So I will tag people in just on the instance that, hey, just be on the offset that something in here may reply to you. We make sure you get this information. So, I mean, sometimes I tend to overshare, and sometimes it may be to the detriment of, maybe we didn't want all this information to go out, but I think that I'd rather lean toward that aspect rather than the other way. One of the and I don't know if there are any Zetas in this room, but I'll take one of their sayings is a good member is a well-informed member. And I'm just tweaking one of their slogans here. A good member is a well-informed member. And what I'd rather have is well-informed people who know, more than maybe they should, than people who are running around with half the information. And if they just had this other piece, they might have been able to make different decisions. So that's one of the things that I try to do. I try to find an intersectionality between people who need information and share it across teams. So I'll leave it at that.
All right, and with 5 minutes and 34 seconds remaining, I'm going to go ahead and close the speakers list at this point with the 4 remaining questions. Seth.
Good afternoon, Seth Barlander, Region 2 Professionals Telecommunications Chair. My question is, as a chair-elect, how will you deal, and definitely would like maybe something a little specific or smart related, how will you deal with the leadership fatigue gap that's causing every year further stresses and strains to the operational and sustainment of executive boards, not just at the PEB level, but also regional and chapter level?
Yeah, and we actually talked about this a little bit, Seth. It becomes, yeah, I know what the position says on the paper, but also becomes, okay, what are you wanting to do? And like I said, I said it a little earlier, what do you want to do? Because what I can say is yes, there are things written down on paper, but we can always tailor that. We tailor it to what the board needs at the time the board needs it. So if you're feeling burnt out and overworked, take a real hard assessment and say, maybe I can't do these 5 things. Maybe I'm really only suited to do these 2 things, and have that conversation. Because what I'll tell people, anybody would rather have, especially as you said, I'm making this pitch to you, I'd rather have you serving in some capacity than no capacity at all. And some members are just like that. You may have seasons where, hey, I can only give this much of myself because otherwise I'll lose myself. And that's not what we want. Don't want anybody to feel like the end all be all will happen if, I don't take on every single one of these positions. And really it's about a conversation. Have that conversation with your leads and your chairs. And that's what I want my board to have, that conversation. That's what I have the personality test. I want to know my people, to know what really is their driver, what motivates them, what do they have going on in their lives. And what I want to do is utilize what they can give me. I can use whatever you can give me. You just got to let me know what you give me. So that's that.
Madam Chair Emeritus.
Should I go now? Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Camila Majid, National Professionals Chair Emeritus. So first and foremost, grateful that the leaders and delegates are still inside the room. Just a point of reference and information. 3 years ago, this room was quite different. There were actually 3 candidates, including myself, running for this role, and the room was very packed. So that's an obvious change from that last time to now. I think it's kind of serendipitous that I'm going after Seth's question because it's a bit of a kind of tag on. The question is, sometimes you have people stepping up for roles, and this is also for the chapter leaders as well, stepping up for roles just to fill a gap or do someone a favor. We've seen that happen on a regional level and even now on a national level. My question to you is, are you more interested in filling a gap or getting someone that you can take their skill set and put them in the right place so that you can conduct business?
No, it's definitely the latter. Put them in the right place. Filling a gap implies to me that you're a placeholder, that you're just a figurehead, that I'm getting you here just because I need somebody to stand here and you kind of do as I say kind of thing. No, what I'm meaning and going back to Seth's question is, and let's take the role of secretary for instance. So okay, maybe you let's name you got 5. I don't know how much time we have. If I can get you to do, let's look at the roles and responsibilities of that secretary position. Let's say there's 5 top roles. If I can give you the priorities of, hey, here's the top 3. If you can't do 5, here's my top 3. And you say, hey, I can do my top 3. I can take that. That's not a gap filler to me. That's somebody using me in the talents that they can provide for me and helping out in the areas we need to help out. And so I just want to make that clarification that's my difference between a gap, doing somebody a favor, and then being somebody who's put in the right place to utilize the talents as they're able to give them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next question.
Hi, Towson. Thank you for your leadership. My name is Shadia Haynes. I'm the Professional Development Chair for the Nesbitt Boston Professionals Chapter. My question is, what are your plans independent of the current chair when your tenure starts? What do you intend to do?
Yeah. So I intentionally, referenced and stated all my statements with the intention of what Arthur is going to do, because like I said, I will definitely have to tailor what I'm going to do to him. But in a perfect world, and it's just me, and I'm doing what I want to do, just with no other stipulations, I really want to get that technology gap and that communication barrier shortened. I want to do what I told you guys earlier, where, hey, if I'm going to a city to visit or a chapter needs help, they have a straightforward way to get that help and get that information. I'm all about streamlining processes. If you've ever known my track record across any board I've worked on, I've always looked to see, okay, what things are taking 8 steps that could really be done in 3? Where are those bottlenecks? Where are those areas that, hey, if we just make one tweak here, this would improve so many other areas elsewhere. That's what I want to do in my position as chair, or chair-elect and chair. Basically, I'll put this behind, because I've seen a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff at WHQ when dealing with our website and the integration and the release of that didn't sit right with me. So I always knew I was going to come to this position at some point and do that, and that's kind of one of the things I want to do is really take a dive in those back-end areas and those processes and those manual procedures that are happening and are bottlenecking our organization. Because we can't say that we're going to go out to solicit these corporations and we don't have our own house cleaned up. I was reading something, looking over some old documentation we had where during the pandemic, Joe Biden was giving out money and we wanted to do something with NSB, indirectly, and NSB wasn't even ready to take it. I'm like, there should never be a way where somebody's giving us out grant money or free money like that. We don't have the infrastructure to take somebody's help like that. That's unacceptable to me. So that's one of the areas that I really have a passion for, and that regardless of what I'm going to be doing specific to what Arthur's agenda will be, that's one of the areas I'm definitely going to focus on. Thank you.
All right, the Q&A session's time has expired. However, in the interest of meeting a commitment previously made, I will entertain a motion to extend the Q&A time for this session by 3 minutes.
Second.
Okay, I hear a motion and a second, and we will treat this as a vote by unanimous consent. Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the time has been extended by 3 minutes, and Mr. Chair-elect, you may ask the final question.
Thank you. The context of my previous question was through the lens of chair-elect. This one is through the lens, of thinking as a chair, Culture really does impact the ability to implement strategy, Having the right culture allows you to solve problems quickly, it promotes creativity within the team, and it makes people feel welcome to the organization. As you think about culture, what are the few items from your perspective that would have you feel that culture is subpar? So a few items that you use to identify subpar culture, and then what's the culture that you want to create as chair?
Say that first part before what was the first part of that question again? What was the culture I want to create?
To think about a culture being subpar, what would be those short list of items that you check the box off for identifying subpar culture? And then what's the culture that you look to create as chair?
Okay, so what are those subpar cultures that I identify, or what are some of the characteristics of subpar culture that I would see and root out? Okay, sure. Yeah, I think the first line of subpar culture is the lack of communication. So the inability to communicate is probably the most prevalent area of subpar culture that I can see. And I guess that stems from, I don't know if it's a culture of, hey, I don't feel confident enough to share my ideas, or somebody hasn't, or confident, or I'm not well versed, or I've been reprimanded for speaking out, so now I don't want to do it out of fear. Things like that are kind of the roots of that improper communication. One of the things that, like I said, to address that, the things that I would do is emphasize that we're all learning, we're all growing, plans change, people change. There is no reason any idea should not be brought to the floor out of fear of inferiority, scared, anything like that. I want to ensure that everybody knows that they have their voice heard. And what I say, and my culture is of that, hey, I have an idea of what I want to do, but if you got a better one, I really do the better idea. It's not about my idea, it's about the best idea. And so I want to make sure that I instill that as a way to circumvent that culture. And like I said, can I ask you to reply about the second part of the question?
Actually, the time is expired. So what I'm gonna ask that you do is you address Arthur, after the session to make sure he gets the rest of his question answered. And of course, there's a list of questions that have come from the chat. With the time having expired, that I did make a commitment to those delegates that you would receive those questions and could respond to them directly. So, with that, I want to thank Townsend for the marathon question and answer session.
Let's go, man. Let's look for a second bottle of water.
Okay, so this is one. God is good.
All right. All right, just some final wrap-up items before we adjourn. I think I know how to do this. I think I know how to do this. I advance the slide. I can't. I think I can. There we go. All right. So the next steps for the delegates, the election ballots have been opened, and you should have them in your email. If you are a delegate and you do not have your your ballot in your email, sent them at 9:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So you should have them by now. Please, by all means, email me, pebparliamentary@sb.org, so we get that reconciled. Confirm that you are, have been, checked in, or if there's some other issue, or conversely, there's some other issue with respect to your having received that ballot, despite having previously confirmed you were done. The voting will end at 3 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time or 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on tomorrow, March 26, 2022. So you have between now and that time to cast your national ballot, as well as for the regions where there are elections currently ongoing. That's the same deadline for those elections as well. We'll be sending email reminders for you to go and vote. I will pester you if you don't complete that responsibility. Once you do actually complete that responsibility, then no more emails should arrive in your inbox asking you to continue voting. And ultimately, we'll communicate the results at the Gold Torch Awards tomorrow night of the National Professional Executive Board elections specifically. With respect to regional votes, those will be communicated to those candidates via separate communications, probably to the extent I can by phone, but also by email, so that those results are known to those candidates. You had okay. So this is the last item, actually, and we do have a general session that is going to start here in about 8 minutes. So we're going to need to matriculate over there. So pending any further business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this session. Is there any objection?
Freebie. But thank the delegates.
And I'm just going to check really quickly if there is an objection on the on the Hoffman, and there isn't. So, having seen or heard any objection, we are adjourned. Thank you so much. 3:22.
Pleasure to meet you in person. I did my best to get to. I think it was one.
And again, thanks to you guys who have joined us virtually or on social media.
I love your energy.
Really appreciate your attention. Have a great day.
Y'all put Richard smack dab in the middle of lunchtime like that one. I need you earlier. Oh, so you can see the questions. Okay, yeah. Thank you for raising that question about
in broadcast.
As soon as I heard you, I was like, set me perfectly there.